They play Arizona. Doug Pederson also spoke yesterday about the freedom that Hurts was provided in the offense compared to Carson Wentz. Listen to this.
It's one of the things that I really appreciate about Carson is I want him to have control. I want him to have the ability to get us in and out of bad plays. We've given him that freedom. So yesterday, our mindset going into the game was, just Jalen, just run the offense, right? We didn't give him a lot of freedom in this game.
Possible that you've given him too much freedom?
I don't think so. I think that goes with any quarterback around the league. I just don't think it's with Carson, but I think it's any starter that is play callers and play designers that you give these guys too much on their plate. And you got to be careful there. There is a fine line.
All right, so let me bring Dan Graziano in for the first time this morning. Graz, what are we hearing coming out of the building right now about the way they're looking at this thing short-term and long?
Short-term, look, it's going to be Hurts, as they announced yesterday, and it was not a hard decision. Obviously, they looked a lot better and a lot different on Sunday with Hurts than they have at any point recently with Wentz. So they're trying to win games. They're not out of it yet in the NFC East, and they wanted a spark, and he gave them one. So that's the short-term answer, and unless he's awful or gets injured, I would imagine he starts the rest of the year. Long-term, boy, oh boy, we have been talking about this for a while. Carson Wentz's contract does lock him in. Very difficult contract to escape, even via trade, because you have to get somebody to take on big money for a guy who's been struggling. A lot of questions going into the offseason about Wentz's future there, about Doug Pederson's future there. If everyone comes back next year, do you have a competition between Wentz and Hurts and then end up paying potentially Carson Wentz starter money to be your backup? A lot to sort out at that position for the Eagles, but right now, short term, they're trying to win games. They think Jalen Hurts gives them the best chance based on what they saw Sunday.
All right, Greg, let me come to you because you did some homework yesterday. Got a tape on this one as well. Show us what you saw from Jalen Hurts on Sunday and what you think it means.
Well, while the passing game was rather elementary, Jalen Hurts, what he provides with his legs and the presence he has in the backfield, he's the guy that gives them by far the best chance to win right now. Here's the zone read, okay? Notice the time, 2 minutes left in the second quarter. Zone read and the line of scrimmage backed up. The defensive end just squeezes ever so slightly, which gives Jalen the green light, and there he goes out the gate. 16-yard gain changes it. This is 13 seconds later, by the way. All right, 13 seconds later. Zone read the other way. Look at the presence it has from the linebackers. They both follow Jalen Hurts, take bad steps, which guess what? Opens up a huge hole. Play side, and Miles Sanders takes the distance. I love this play, too. This is pressure. They're going to try to heat up a young quarterback. Jalen Hurts says, you know what? I know Alshon Jeffrey is a big, strong guy that can't run past anyone. So what am I going to do? I'm going to buy a little time, and I'm going to throw a little jump ball so my big body, strong wide receiver can wall off a defender and potentially secure the touchdown on fourth down. Now, that was his best throw of the day. I didn't think he threw it great, and they didn't ask him to. A lot of his throws were at or near the line of scrimmage, and it was very pedestrian. But his presence in the backfield and the way he uses his legs will make everyone else on the offense better at this point in time.
All right, so I always love to get you have a great knack of sort of encapsulating the entire situation. How would you put into your words what we have right now in Philadelphia with Wentz, with Hurts, and everything else?
Jalen Hurts is the fly in the ointment in Philly. And I know the conversation has been going on about what the future would look like, but the future don't have no damn staple right now. When you look at what Carson Wentz has done and how he's played, and then you put Jalen Hurts up against who was the #1 defense in the league, and he plays and performs at a high level and creates some things. Listen, G, this is the second time now we're having this conversation in Philly about a backup quarterback coming in and operating in this offense better since Carson Wentz MVP year. So there's an issue. And look, we can try to hide it, and we talk about the money, and that's justifiably so. We all know that when you have a player on your team that's making a crazy amount of money, the responsibility goes to seeing if he can play or recreate that. Everybody knows that. But I'm telling you right now, based on Jalen Hurts' history, the things that he's been through, the jobs that have been taken away from him, and the ability to bounce back, this is not going to be easy for Carson Wentz to just come back and immediately think he's going to be the starter once they get into the offseason. Jalen Hurts is literally planted in the conversation for being the Philadelphia Eagles starter moving forward. The fly in the ointment, G, and they did not plan on this happening.
I hear you. And listen, that figures to be the most interesting team to follow through the rest of the season and into the meaty part of the offseason. Meanwhile, Graziano, let's run the hurry up. There's a lot of other notes we need to get to, and let's start in Washington. What is the latest with Alex Smith?
Alex Smith injured his calf in Sunday's game. They're evaluating it. They've run tests on it. The key will be to see how much he can practice and how he moves around in practice. Obviously, his status for next weekend's game is in question until they see how the calf responds here in the next couple of days and how much he can do in practice. We're going to sound like a broken record here on these quarterback injury issues. Matthew Stafford of the Lions suffered an injury to his rib cage area on Sunday. Again, they're not concerned about fractures. The x-rays came back negative, but they don't know how much work he's going to be able to do in practice. Stafford, a guy who's played through a lot of pain and a lot of injury in his career. Obviously, you can't rule him out for this weekend, but they still, as we sit here right now, are not entirely sure. And then Drew Brees has missed the last 4 games for the New Orleans Saints with ribcage injuries of his own, 11 rib fractures as detailed by our Ed Werder. Brees is a guy that's eligible to come off of IR, was this past week, but the Saints are going to be cautious with him. They still don't have a plan for whether and how much he will practice this week. And of course, unless we see him on the practice field looking good and looking comfortable, he probably misses at least 1 more game.
And that game this weekend is against Kansas City, one of the best matchups of the season so far. All right, we're just getting rolling here. Lots still to come. On the way, one of Jerry Jones' game of the year last night. Browns-Ravens in the 4th quarter. Lamar Jackson in the locker room with cramps. Trace McSorley in with the Ravens down by 1 in the final 2 minutes. And down he goes, untouched on a slippery turf. Everyone can see it's a bad-looking injury. Devastation in the moment. But hold everything. Lamar Jackson doing his best imitation of Willis Reed back on the field on a 4th and 5 with the season on the line. Throws a miraculous touchdown to Hollywood Brown, giving the Ravens the 42-35 lead after the 2-point conversion. But hold everything. The fun was just beginning. Browns ensuing possession. Baker Mayfield, who had a terrific night, would cap it with this toss to Kareem Hunt. They would tie the game at 42, but they would leave 64 ticks on the clock. And that would be enough time for Lamar Jackson to do this. From the pocket, Mark Andrews over midfield, sets up Justin Tucker, 55 yards. He's the best kicker in the NFL because he is clutch. That's your ball game. Ravens go on to win it 47-42. Again, an absolute thriller. 20 points scored in the final 2 minutes. And it does bring up my Twitter poll question of the day, because both teams look right now like they will get into the playoffs. Ravens still have some work to do, but if they get there, which one feels built to make a deep run? Could see this going either way. Last I checked on my Twitter page, I think the voting is close, so get on there and cast your vote. Browns, Ravens, who you got to go farther in the playoffs? And let me get my guys in here and see what they think of it. And Swagoo, I'll start with you. As you watch these 2 teams last night and you sort of figure out where we're going to be a month from now, which one you think is better built to make a deep run in January?
Last night I said the Cleveland Browns are dangerous, but the Ravens are built to make a deeper run. First, it's experience, G. The Ravens have been at that point, and I think them having to fight to get into the playoffs will actually give them some juice going into the playoffs. Coming off those great seasons, and obviously we've had the conversations about Lamar in the playoffs, but this Lamar Jackson is terrifying to anybody when you get into the playoffs. And then when you think about this, you look at a team that's been through all the things that the Ravens have been through, COVID, even the quarterback, Lamar having to go back into the locker room this game, the way they're built to go into Cleveland in that environment, backs against the wall, a dog fighting his way out of a corner, and they were able to get that done. So I think this win catapults them, but also I reflect back to something Jeff said. Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson going into the playoffs this year and having the ability to do what we watched him do last night. That's the team that I think can make a big run, because usually outside of Pat Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, you're going to have the best player on the field. And even with those 3 guys and anybody else in the league, you're going to have the best athlete on the field. So I picked the Baltimore Ravens, and from a defensive standpoint.
It's 1 vote for the Ravens. Greg McElroy, what's got your vote?
We've seen a pretty spectacular regular season Lamar in the past, only to see him not play so spectacularly in the playoffs. I'm going with the Browns. Shockingly enough, I'm going with the Browns. It's because of Nick Chubb. And it's because of that offensive line and that offense's identity. It's really about running the football and controlling the line of scrimmage. And Nick Chubb has turned into not just a good back, we're talking about an elite back. Oh, by the way, yeah, here comes Kareem Hunt, who's also extremely capable when lined up in an I formation and as a pass catcher coming out of the backfield. I mean, those two in a 1-2 punch is really exciting. Oh, by the way, Baker Mayfield's coming into his own. He's more confident, he's more accurate, and I do think that if they got forced into a situation where it became a throw-a-thon, he would be more equipped at this point with the weapons he has to beat you through the air. This is a team that's more balanced than the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, when Lamar gets out and they're playing against man coverage and they're getting cover zero, like, he'll torch you. But I do think that the Browns are a team that can beat you in several different ways as opposed to the 1 or 2 different ways that the Ravens can beat you. Both teams are good, but I'd lean towards the Browns, shockingly enough.
I can't ignore it, Marcus, when you're doing that thing with your head. What is your reaction to this?
Gee, the Browns defense doo-doo. Period. Like, they're doo-doo. Like, you think about, look, Baker Mayfield and that offense they have it rolling. G is exactly right. But when you look at the second, I mean, G-Mac is exactly right about this offense. And that's the reason why I think they're dangerous. But it better not be a shootout against a good quarterback, against a really good offense, because that defense has been atrocious. Even going back to last week, we looked at the Tennessee Titans and we know how that game transpired. Second half, the Titans went crazy on that defense. We saw Lamar last night. And look, it's not about just playing. So undisciplined. And the things that they were doing were just uncalled for. Even on the zero blitz at the end of the game. Keep outside contained against Lamar Jackson. At worst, run to the sideline and force him back into the defense. This defense is going to be the Achilles heel for the Cleveland Browns. That offensive performance last night should have won any game. But, you know, G say they well-rounded. I don't think so.
We will have much more on this game as we continue. And I will tell you why both of them are well-suited for a deep run this year.